Hey, what's up, everybody? So I thought I'd make a video. And why am I wearing this hat? Again, I don't know. Somebody recommended that I wear it again. So that's what I'm doing. You can see that it doesn't even really... It overlaps my head. So if it was perfect to be like this, see? But it's not. So I guess I'll just have to wear it like this or something. Anyway, this video isn't about my hat, as nice as it is. Oh, I got it now. Okay. So I guess that's how it works. Anyway. So I was thinking today about property. And I don't know, over the course of 20 minutes, I thought of reasons why Lockean property rights don't really work out. Or might not work out. Now, disclaimer, this video is not about absolute claims. It's about theories, ideas that I had today while I was working. I know, maybe an odd time to think about this kind of stuff, but I do. It's what you do, as you do. So I went basically from what is a state to talk about Lockean principles. And why they're problematic due to a Weberian definition of a state, which might not be legitimate to begin with. And I'll link it in the description. Something by Quentin Skinner, I think that's his name. I could be wrong. And he does the genealogy of the state. And so, if you like that, he does the genealogy of freedom too. They're both very good. So you might reject Weber's definition of a state. And then from there I was like, okay, well, if private property doesn't work, then what about communal property? And then I figured out that didn't work. Okay, well, what about in the middle? Aren't there conditions that would be in the middle and principles in the middle? So I looked at mutualist principles, which for me is the middle principle. I know it's a bit of a reductionist approach, but I'm just simplifying things for time and effort, I suppose, because I'm a lazy bastard. Anyway, so, and then I eventually came to the conclusion that that didn't work either. So I'm kind of at a loss of what to do. So I thought I'd make a video about me being at a loss of what to do. Yay! Okay, so let me run through this. So basically first, we have to accept, and if we don't accept, then that's something worth talking about, obviously, the Weberian notion of the state. If we don't accept the Weberian notion of the state, then that's something we have to talk about. And this whole argument assumes that you accept the Weberian notion of the state. Now, Nick, stop talking about the Weberian notion of the state. I don't know what that is. Just say the definition. Okay. Max Weber in Politics as a Vocation. God, I almost couldn't remember the essay. He defines a state as a community of people. This is abridged or paraphrased because I'm not reading directly from the quote. It's a community of people that claim the legitimate use of force over a geographical area. So basically, within a geographical area, they are the only people who can initiate the use of force legitimately. So basically, that's all a government is. That's all a state is. For the purposes of this video, a state and a government is the same thing. So keep that in mind. So that's the Weberian notion of the state, or government. A community of people that claim the legitimate use of violence over another group of people who they say cannot claim such a legitimate use of violence. So basically, there's one group of people who claim that they can legitimately use the initiation of force or violence or aggression or whatever you want to call it. And we could also, if we can accept Weber's definitions but say that there are some problems, we could talk about what constitutes aggression, what constitutes violence, what constitutes this stuff, because that's stuff worth talking about too. So basically, it's a community of people that claim, and I'm only going to say this one more time, I swear, I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep repeating myself. But it's a community of people that claim a legitimate use on the ability to initiate violence against other people. So the other community of people can't unless they're somehow allowed into the first community. So Group A or Group B, Group A being the government, they're closed off unless they let you in, and Group B doesn't have the right to initiate force or, have the same privileges as Group A does. Okay, so if we accept all that, if we say that's all true, and I'll have the exact Max Weber quote in the description, how can we, let's look at Lockean property rights. So basically, Lockean property rights, and I actually haven't read Locke, and I want to at some point, but I know what his basic idea of property rights is because it's been repeated ad infinitum by ANCAPs and right-wing libertarians, and even left-wing libertarians to some extent seem to like it. I don't necessarily blame them, but just worth noting. So I'm coming from a left libertarian perspective, of course. But so the Lockean principle basically is that something that you mix your labor with. There's also a proviso, but most ANCAPs don't go by it. I think it might be worth going by it de facto, but maybe not de jure, which basically means by the fact of that it's most practical instead of by law. So basically, maybe we shouldn't force people to follow the proviso, but it might be practical to have that nominally in place. So basically, you mix your labor with land, and then you own it. There's no, to what I know, there's no standard of how much labor you're supposed to mix or whatever. But basically, the labor that you mix the land with is something that you own. Now, you can own this indefinitely, or there can be an abandonment principle. You could own it and then leave it, and then, under common law, sometimes it's up to like 7 years after that it's considered abandonment if you don't come back and use it anymore. So the whole use and occupancy isn't completely without merit, even on the current legal framework that we have. Not saying that that's more legitimate or less, but I'm just saying there is some precedent for it. So basically, I like to say so basically, just to sum up what I'm trying to say. So, where was I? So the Lockean principle basically is that you absolutely own your property, or at least, within special limits, basically. But, so when somebody comes onto your property, if somebody comes onto your property and without your approval, and this is really the crux of the whole video, I guess, you are the only person who have the right to initiate violence against them to stop them. Now, of course, not everyone would at first. They might say, "Hey, please get off my lawn. Get off my lawn. It's my property." But or they might, start threatening you. And then they might get up close, and then they might push you around. And then if you still don't move and keep moving forward, they might, push you away. And if you keep going forward, they might punch you. But still, it doesn't matter, because they're the only person or individual on that geographical area that can use violence legitimately in the defense of their property. So they have a monopoly on violence. So the Lockean principle basically allows for decentralized or individualized states to exist. Now, we could speculate about whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, but if we take the Weberian notion of a state, which is a community, of course, in this case, it's not a full-blown state. I'm not saying it's at all comparable to the nation state, but it's definitely a state. In the Weberian sense of the term, because although it's not a community, it is a person that has a monopoly on the use of force within their geographic area that they claim, that they also claim to have a monopoly on. So I'm curious how people think this is legitimate. You could say, well, that's not a state because they legitimately own that land, but that doesn't really matter. Although the state doesn't legitimately own all the land, because it or the community of people that are the state or government don't use all that land, or haven't mixed their labor with the land, or whatever, or just deny the collective benefit if you're more of an ANCOM, or whatever their argument may be. I'm not purporting to be an ANCOM and know their argument. I'm just setting up an argument I think they might use. But in any event, I don't have a script, so I'm kind of going offhand. I mean, this was hours ago, so bear with me while I try to remember things. So basically, yeah, you're the only person on your property who can use the initiation of force against other people, and nobody else can use force to defend your property because it's your property. And I'm not saying that it's not their property. I'm just saying, doesn't this seem weird? Because it's just a state on an individualized level. Now, sure, that's a hell of a lot better than the nation state. But if everybody starts seeing this as a normal thing, as a normal standard, as a normal norm, as just a everyday thing, then what if a community of people decided that a larger geographic area was theirs, and they only had the they were the only ones who had the de facto right, not even de jure, it could be de jure, but not necessarily, de facto right to defend it or use violence to make sure other people can't occupy the land. Isn't that a state? So these are all philosophical questions I'm having. I'm not saying I'm right, and I'm not even saying I'm being consistent or that these ideas are bulletproof. They're just ideas. They're just ideas that I had today, and I thought I'd share them on here, on Facebook, and specifically on a mutualist group that there's been a lot of discussion about whether private property itself is unethical. So, but let's assume the Lockean principle isn't correct. Well, then private property isn't legitimate, is it? I mean, so let's go to the other extreme. What if everybody could, not de jure, but de facto, because it's more practical, collectively own stuff? Then you couldn't. Nobody has more of a right to anything than the other person. But this doesn't seem fair because people could just claim something and take it, and then you can't say anything about it because everybody has an equal right to it. So you can't say anything about it. But that doesn't seem fair because you put your own time and labor and effort into it, and you should be rewarded by being able to keep it or being able to share it if that's what you want. But this again goes back to you're monopolizing this object and monopolizing the use of force in protection of this object. So is that a individualized state, if you want to call it that? Is it creating unethical norms or relations between people? I mean, everything I'm saying here could be bullshit. I'm not saying what I'm saying here is true. I want to keep emphasizing that for people who think I'm making truth claims or whatever, or claims that I purport definitely have some validity. They might, but I'm not sure. These are just ideas I had. I want to discuss them. So that's the last time I'm giving that disclaimer, because I bet people who have already gotten that are saying, oh, I'll just get on with it. So what about a middle principle? If collective property seems unfair and private property seems just like an individualized state, well, what if we do it mutualist style? What if we did it through use and occupancy? Well, that seems most practical to me. I mean, you can only use what you use and occupy, or what you really exert your labor towards. Everything else is just a possession that other people might have access to, or I don't know. That's not the mutualist position, I'm pretty sure, but again, I'm just trying to create a position and put the mutualist label under because it sounds like something they might think, sort of. So yeah, that kind of sucks, sorry. I'm not trying to strawman the mutualists because I really have a lot of respect for what mutualists do and what they're about. So I'm not trying to strawman them, and any mutualist that's on my subscribers list, I would encourage you to tell me what your position on this would be. But then again, I'm posting this on the mutualist group on Facebook, so I'll probably get that either way. Anyway, but use and occupancy, it doesn't seem exactly fair, and I forget why I came to that conclusion. It seems most practical, but I don't know about moral, because it still seems like a problem of it's unfair to take something that people are using but suddenly drop, or suddenly I know these are the standard responses to mutualist property rights, and that just shows how uneducated I am in some of these topics, but I don't claim to be super educated. I just claim to be making theories and ideas based on the knowledge that I do have, and by presenting this I hope to get more knowledge on this sort of stuff. So I don't know. All three seem problematic in different ways, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're invalid, but it doesn't bring up problems. And I'd like to hear people who support Lockean homesteading, mutualist property rights, and communist or community-based property defend these claims. Which camp do I fall in? Well, kind of just like Quentin Skinner, I'm not going to tell you where I fall in because I'm pretty vague about where I stand right now. So thanks for your time, YouTuber. YouTuber? I don't like that. Anyway, thanks for your time. See you later.